Hi and welcome to Game Creation, and we're going to carry on from where we got up to last week because this is going to be kind of a multi-week kind of focus for this project. But we are looking at completing a game every single week in JavaScript. So this is kind of our halfway point, a week 2, and this is going to be a kind of 3-week project. This week we are going to be creating the classic game Snake, and in my head it seems really simple, but I'm sure when we get coding it's not going to be as simple. There's not going to be any planning video today because I think we need the full 5 days to complete this project. So without further ado, let's get started. So I've opened up the same project as we have last week because we're going to have the same kind of things in it. We're going to need the canvas element. We'll keep it at 500 to 300, that's fine, and we can always change that later on. This is the most important part. This is where we grab our canvas element and then we get the context, and the context, as we said last week, is how you do any kind of changes in it. We are going to comment this out. Now what I mean by comment this out is you do a forward slash and a star, and then when you want to finish the comment you do a star and a forward slash like that, and that basically removes it from the code. So if I save that now and go back to the game and then refresh, nothing happens. Everything else still loads, we've still got the context and stuff, but just that part we commented out just doesn't load, but it stays there so that we can, take things from it, because we'll need some of these functions for our Snake game. In today's video, what I want to do is create the all the pixels and create a way of storing where everything is. So we're just going to get started. This is what happens when I don't have a planning video, but what can you do? Okay, so the first thing we're going to do is try and get our heads around loops in JavaScript. Now loops are actually pretty simple. We call them for loops, if I spell it right. And you write the word for, then you open a bracket. Now you say the value you want I to be. Now it can be any letter or it can be any word, but we say I is going to start off being 0. Then you put a colon, and then we need to say when we want this loop to stop. I want this loop to stop when, I don't know, I is less than 12. Semicolon. Or colon, whichever one it is, and then we want to need to say what's gonna happen after every loop. Or we want I to increase by 1, and we can say I equals I plus 1. There's actually an easier way of doing that in JavaScript. You just say I plus plus. Close the bracket, and this loop will happen 12 times. And to show that it happens, what we're going to do is we're going to console.log. Remember, we used this last week, and it just spits out something to the console, and we're just going to spit out the I to the console. Save that, and go back to our project, and remember we do inspect element, and go to console, and here is where all of the console stuff comes out. So if I refresh now, there we go, it goes 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, which is what we want, and that is 12 numbers because we count 0. So there we are, that's how to do loops. Okay, so interesting how that is. We actually want to use it for something more creative, and we're going to be using this to represent the Y component on our, or is it the X component? Let's have a think. I always try and start off with Y, so let's say this is Y. And I doesn't exist anymore, so we can get rid of that. Okay, and what this is going to do is this is going to be our positions for the Y. Now we've got to start thinking about how we want our grids to appear, and this is what we're doing here. We did grid in ClickTeam Fusion before, and we did it in the same way, but they just called them loops. This is just called a for loop, and this is how you do it. So it's just going to go through this loop 12 times. It's going to start off with Y is 0. It's going to add 1 to Y each time it goes through between these curly braces here, and then it will stop when y is 12, because y has to be less than 12 for this to continue, and then it carries on with the rest of the code. So we're probably going to need an X loop as well, so I'm just going to copy that and have X loop as well. Okay, now we've got to consider what the numbers are going to be. So if I want the pixels on the grid, the squares on the grid, to be, say, 25 pixels, so there's 500 width, which would be what, 20 times we need that, and 300 width, so that would be 12. So 12 for y, and then we need 20 for x, like so. Okay, now we want to create squares on the grid at these points, okay, because we want to create the grid. So I'm just going to nick that rectangle thing here. In fact, I'll nick all of this, copy and paste it in, because this we know creates a rectangle. So we're going to get rid of the clear rect. We will need that later, but we won't do it here. We've got 2 rectangles being created, we only need 1. Okay, so we know that the rectangle is going to be 25 by 25. And the x coordinate of it is just going to be the x times 25. And the y coordinate of it is going to be the y times 25. Okay, check it, check that it all makes sense, save it. Hopefully this works, and it should have 25 pixel grids all around here, which it does. I'm just going to close the console. There we go. Perfect, perfectamundo. Now I've just remembered that someone last week said that they wanted to read this a little bit better, so I'm going to zoom in. So just view, zoom in, and it says control mouse wheel up. There we are. Didn't work before. Okay, there we go. And so you can see it a bit easier on screen. Now the problem we've got at the moment is we don't actually want squares, we want them filled in, and the way of doing that in JavaScript, just say fill instead of stroke. So I'm just going to save that and go back to the project, and it looks clear black, but that's only because they're all filled in. They're still individually there, but there's still loads of little squares, not just one big square. Okay, brilliant. Right, now we want to be looking at an array, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to copy that and I'm going to paste it again, and we're going to be focused on the array. Now we've talked about arrays before. Arrays are just repositories of information, and we're going to create what's called a 2-dimensional array, which means that there's going to be a y component to the array and an x component to the array. Why I'm starting off with y and then x, I have no idea. I might swap that around, because normally you want x first and then you want y. It just makes more sense. I'm going to just go do that to both of them. It doesn't actually matter which way around you have them. There we are. And I've always had issues with x and y and which order to have them in, because of various reasons. Okay, so x always comes first. Right, now we need to create the array. So I'm going to create a new variable called tile array. And the way of creating an array in JavaScript is you just say equals and then these square brackets. These square brackets are kind of the box of the array. You can actually put things in them. So I can put 1, 2, and 3, and that's an array of length 3. And the second element in the array is 2, the first element in the array is 1, and the last element in the array is 3. But I don't actually want to put anything in the array yet, because I'm going to let this loop put stuff into the array. And all this loop's going to do is create the blank array. We don't actually want anything in the array, we just want to create a blank array. And so what we're going to do is we're going to say every time x goes through its loop, we need to create an array at index x. So what this is doing is it's saying at index x, we need to create another array, and that's what makes it a 2-dimensional array, because this array here is actually made up of loads of little arrays which are the length of x. So there'll be 20 little arrays there that make up that. Okay, and then each of these we're going to say, right, for position X in our original array and position Y in that array, we're just going to have, I don't know, 0 to say there's nothing of interest in there. Now to see what's happened, what I'm going to do is just console.log and then the tile array. Save it. Let's go back to our project, open up the inspect element. There's other ways of getting to the console, but I find this the easiest. Right, refresh, and you can see here that's created an array of 20, one for each X, okay? And then each of those 20 have another array for all the Y coordinates in them, and there's 12 of each. Okay, so that's one array that has 20 arrays in it, and each of those 20 arrays have 12 elements, and each of those 12 just 0, so we've got them blank at the moment. Brilliant, so we've created the array. Now we want this loop here, this 2D loop here, or nested loop that we call them, to be more intelligent. At the moment it's just filling out rectangles, but what we want to do is say, well, if the tile is more than 0, then we want to fill it in. Okay, so we're just going to create an if statement here. We've got our curly braces to say, if this happens, do this. Okay, the condition we want is we want to look into the tile array and we want to say, well, hang on, if that doesn't equal 0. Okay, and doesn't equal is exclamation mark equal. Okay, doesn't equal 0. Then we do this. Okay, simple as that. Now, at the moment, none of them don't equal 0. All of them are 0, so this will never happen. So what I'm going to do here is be a bit sort of cheaty, and I'm just going to change one of them. What am I going to change? 3, 5. I'm going to say 3, 5 is going to equal 1, just so we can test this out. Save it. Save it and go back. There we go. Refresh, and there we go. There's that 1 that's created, and that will be the player piece, or the piece of food that the snake's going to eat. And there we are. So we've done an awful lot in this short video. What is it? About 13-minute video. But I've probably gone too quickly, and I hope I haven't. But this we've basically done before in ClickTeam Fusion. These are just nested loops, and this is just creating an array. We've done that before. This is changing a value in the array, and then this is just reading the array, checking to see if something in the array is different to 0, and drawing a rectangle there. Okay, and this is going to be probably the most complicated part of this project, is creating the array and then reading from the array. Because I think everything else is a bit easier to explain. But we shall be progressing tomorrow, and so far we're on target, and let's hope that continues. I'll see you tomorrow. Thank you very much for watching this video. If you want to see more from us, please click subscribe. We release videos every single weekday at 7 PM UK time. Thank you.